Hello, Laura and Alejandra. We'll get started soon. Yeah, 54. Yeah, in the so we're starting under the section on laxity and excitation. There's a section in 24, and we'll be starting kind of under laxity. I think starting with laxity may be gross or subtle. Unfortunately, the page number from this PDF is not the same as the. I don't know which PDF you have, but it'll be the gross or subtle laxity under the section on laxity. It's a paragraph there. It says laxity may be gross or subtle, and gross laxity. That's, I think, where we're starting.
That's what that's on good Jarwa.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started.
Tangato di Yatan Jani Gomser Lamandro Deviori. Yatan Danachu non Gom Gavzin in Jogum Chin in Jogum Chin, the Ashuchi She de Gore, Papa de Akata Jani Goms Shon, the Mupat, so Kando Pa, Chilijan and Rezegore. They share the Carrezidi, do the same like Yonder Che de Gore, some symbolic Yonder Che de Gore. Yonder.
Younger. So when we talk about meditation, of course, we've talked a lot about meditation in general, and here we're talking about placement meditation or single-pointed meditation, which just to generally state is a meditation where you take an object and you sort of review that object over and over and over to try to get your mind stable on that object.
Samlo the church le jago samna kyuni jato mar koroko ina jugde ro ati pa chal khamle garana tak mukpal njato ya sem tembo chi yonder yongi chetla ta gomjab de yore.
So generally speaking, the way that the mind works, we can't really stop our mind from thinking or from doing things. Our mind is always kind of going. But what we can do is we can keep placing our mind on the object of meditation. If you do that over and over again, your mind will eventually stay there.
So simply put, Lolo Chini Deni Matroni Sakayo Marta, Deto Mundo. So Ndo Banajman is some kind of Damantan, Sim Kangichi, in Tapa Zodeore. Oh, yeah. Kali Yonder Chena, so Ndopa Najan. So,
of course, these days, many people have a lot of problems with their mind. They have many difficulties with their mind. And one of these reasons is that they never really let their mind sort of rest and be stable. And so it's really helpful if we're able to, over time, to really learn to rest our mind and keep our mind stable. And if we do this over and over again, we'll actually be able to develop a stable mind, a concentrated mind.
Mi apoji chego na karche gore ziti samba zambo chego rezini ta parchin zambulin de lab channel yore ma kha kore samba zambo zena garaze wati mi jambala no mekwa control malama tani chance yo njo tani chi chego rezini sama chego yo lab parche kha ko de yore la te mambo chi cheni ya chogo yore te che to yo mare control tando cha ta no sem to shik cheni nga so tu pham ro yore
dig pham de
so pham ba ja
so when we say, so pretty much everyone in the world, we all respect, we all value this idea of having a good mind, a friendly, like a kind mind, a virtuous mind. And, to do that, what we have to do is we have to get rid of anger. We have to get rid of this sort of ill will towards others. We have to increase love. And compassion, but really for us right now, we're not really able to do this. And why are we not able to do this? Because over and over again, we are defeated by our afflictions.
Jana Salo the Kati Chimbotana, and so the Kev Sayungwe ores, Lama Chopanal, Tenichi Jawari, that's which have San Shemagoch. Pelo Chijanas, Sangi Shakat the Bago, Janto Kyanjan, Le Matil Salo Tanjalta, 30 Coron 30 Deva told me, Kev Sancheva the Kororashas, same Chadam Kesa Cheva the Raman, Kesa Cheva the Kororashas, Naruto. Nita Koa Toma Mebantan, Narutsu, Yanjang Chemang, Mijala Salola Matandi,
Mm.
Jella Yamapa, Sosola Yamapa, Ranjakanga Ponchas, Sonta, Champanchia, the Jella Pembalita, Soso Pembachia, Sonta, it Tablanki Vichetanji, Sonta, so Jampen, the Salo Gachi Tango Lores.
So when we think about what is a good person, what makes a person good, really what we think about is trying to help others as much as possible and decreasing our sort of selfishness or this desire to really only benefit ourselves. We decrease that as much as ourselves. And so we can think about this, right? We can think about the Buddha, right? So the Buddha only wants to help others, right? Really, really just deeply only wants to help others. But through helping others, through this mind of truly desiring only to help others, in fact, the Buddha gets his or her own incredible benefit, right? So it's through this action of helping others and giving up self-cherishing that one gains this incredible benefit. Now, we normally sort of do the opposite. Normally what we are doing is we're working for ourselves, for our own benefit, and we're not working so much to help others. And because of this, we suffer, right? So the point of this really is, if you want to be a good person and you want to be happy, really, as much as we're able to sort of generate this mind that wishes and works for the benefit of others, then that's very good.
Jandul Savlo Tanto Yo Mari, Rando Kyanga Savlo Tangore, not so Dochoni Savlo, not so Rando the Machoni Tani, so Karchen and Juan Rochik Savlo Pan, Jambal Savlo the Gachem Wachitana, Narutsul Kangi Shuchi Chondro Sari Mari Kursa Savlo Chitana, Nisana Chungoresa. Nichik Soso Langal Chimanduachin and Nal Chikan Chengaman, Keo Mari Sangro. So Rando Chonsaro. That's so now just also do patches on them Jamba Tates Mandinangal Chichemas and Simba Machava. Rando Kate Chona, Jamba which you chair, so Chicano Manona Tagaro. So that they get to think on each other after we was a Sanjay song and Terila.
So one thing we should examine, we should look at really is if we think about normally we have a lot of self-cherishing, we're normally working for our own benefit and we're not working for others' benefit. But if we're able to decrease this mind that's always trying to work for our own benefit, if you decrease this selfish mind, then when someone else does something to you that might annoy you or hurt you, right? Your mind is able to stay happy and peaceful because you don't have a mind that's full of this desire, right? So then as you're able to reduce your self-cherishing, as you're able to reduce this mind that's only working for your own benefit, one of these benefits is that when other people sort of do things that would otherwise hurt you or annoy you, it doesn't bother you as much.
Rando the Chori Tanjando the Gacheri Tanangoni Natsol de Kichi Yonsari Sambaji Chona. That's a Rando Chori Tan the Lila Wachuni Mandusiro. That's when you tapa Samgo to the Cheto Mandus. Sonsa teacher Matop Sonsa Jani Gomgores, Gom Jani Jani the Tembo Chinjopsona. Ani Rando the Machi Chani Jandong Gola Samlo Chitana, Cosim Tembores has Simba Corner Yapotembo de Togres.
So it's we can easily see, like we think about this, we can see that, right? Also, if we can reduce our self-cherishing and we can increase this mind that cherishes others, this will be of great benefit. Right? It's not so hard to see, but actually doing it is quite hard. It's actually quite difficult to reduce this self-cherishing and to truly increase this cherishing for others in the way that brings benefit to mind. So the way that we do this, or the method that we use to do this, is this achievement of shine or calm abiding or shamatha with this very powerful mind, this concentrated mind, and you use that and apply that, you're able to really get rid of this self-cherishing in a way that benefits you.
That's all the same. The journey and the Chitosona, there's a chak cabling zone, the cabling hakwa. Cabling zone, which is same chandra, Sarah. Kajas. When
we achieve shamatha or calm abiding or shine, it's like our mind becomes like a magnet, with metal, right? So wherever we put our mind, the mind sticks to it, right? So that we're able to very easily just sort of stays there on its own.
Not so control and do chat that the song goal is Yanni to Samara. Chance the Gento to Songoli.
So if we're really able to turn our mind into a magnet in this way through shine, then of course then our mind will never get stuck on things like anger, jealousy, ill will, or attachment, right? We can place it on things like love, compassion, all of these good things, and it'll stay there of its own accord.
Ore tani tani re sonta ta jane gom gore yena ya jane gom satin takan tanda shia na jere nga su sem tembo zo sati chamse ta nyangji ninje ta chanchu ko sem da jempan ta tomba ni tso gom gore ma tso ma gom ni ya pecho ta mata na jane nga su nyomol karte cha to gore zine te to mare law.
So although it's really important to remember when we think about calm abiding, right? Calm abiding by itself does not have the power to get rid of our afflictions. We have to meditate on the things like love, compassion, emptiness, dependent arising. All of these things are you through the mind of Shina. You meditate on these things, and these are the things that will get rid of the afflictions. The concentrated mind of shamatha itself is not an antidote to the afflictions.
Kaza kengal chik tanso huichin la konsen chok lab cha chik tanso ina la ta ra shen do tanga chu jong mong bo na lior min kai shi ge jan ne gom ni tani gom shi udyam ni ko ta ga tangin zang chipo ga mang jam nyang je to song go la ma gom na par shi yang jo kangin na la ma zang do re song yor.
His Holiness has said this, and I guess you guys were talking about this, that this is an advice His Holiness has said a lot, that people that meditate and really work on a concentration over and over again, that's only temporary benefit, and then all of these afflictions, all these problems come back quite quickly.
Gom gyab gore zia tsawan rawo pendong rawo te yem ba jija chegani takatsa kini chingom da so mambo jingo choche tandinal ma jingo kur mambo shuchi sonjandu tsama maim ba chi tirimi chingwan cham tharani ta gopa tharani ndu tete ma jipcha chi
so that's just a little bit about the benefits of meditation and how to meditate. There's a whole lot of detail in here about different sort of the meditation steps and divisions and things. But right now, today, what we're going to talk about is the divisions of gross and subtle laxity and the divisions of gross and subtle excitement. This is the topic for today that we'll go through.
Chiwan charani ganangi chiwan rakpa zia de karezena mutela sermi kyan pancha me patan se mamba pa ter mupa che maksarjan jigpa yende stikap pancha ta ngarcha nika mepi chiwa samon sarcha ta pancha nicha so yo kyan sar chingar me pas ya tindi chishendu ta do dina chiwa tala chamo zia chi ta rakpa zia chi ni yores a chiwa ta nga tsokasa shia na jere gomya te zia ko Levika ma to yung ma tikaw de gom jani de amugpat buki so gom jab sakar amugpai na tel semba mashur ni de yores yana seman nyop to chani sem yaksar bon ro chi me ache ani mugpat le ya tembo ro chi me pa tri sem chi le ni tri de tri gom ni de na gom chakare zena gom khoma ke chiwa ra pa gom de yores.
So laxity, we're going to read from the text here. Laxity may be gross or subtle. In gross laxity, although the mind stays on the object of meditation, either there is no lucidity or the meditation object is very unclear, as if a fog has settled on the mind. Both lucidity and vibrancy are absent at such a time. In the case of subtle laxity, although clarity, lucidity, and stability are present, the clarity lacks vibrancy to which the mind becomes stupefied. So here in this gross laxity, the mind, you're able to stay on the object, but your mind is not, very clear. The object is not clear. There is some tendency to get scattered. But it is a mind that has sort of attained the object.
On the sarcha de ata so sem de sarbo tamu ro tere ta mu pa ya sabole ko nga so sem de tansi sim de chiwa
niga de
sema tu te yer cha shiba le jang do shiba de as ripa tansi si chiche ni do nyo ton ra chuma de sarcha de ata te jar
de sarcha
sarcha ta tangcha ze de ata tani ta ni pa te chiwa thambo ze de ata kar gom jab de sarbo ta tambo shu yores de mu pa le shor de yo mar ta gom ta pa che gom yin sha shang ra wo chi yore ta mu pa de ki yer le pa zig de ni ra wo chi shi ngar shi te yo mares ne te sam go na jang so te mo police te mo nga te mo tan ro nyo te mo ta de police de ta te mo ta de ore pichar na ma to ta yo ma ribat so ta tambo re la ta sa yang police thang ran ta de ore ta mi jamba ta so se ama imba mi kera chimbo ta so se on de mi si puki mi cho ja ta chi na pa shu no bo chi zing do do o te chi go sa mu pa la pa shu tembo chi chimbo chi
Nivo ti gapsu ti
chiwa
tamo
thamo te mu pa la tembo chi ja ma to re shi pa ta sa bo chi yo re mu pa la mu yang de yo re pa ta la pa zum do yan do ngar te yo ma re shi ba ngar ze yan do ngar cha lam do
oh de ngarcha
ngar cha ngar me pa zen do ngar ze ti shi pa pa no bo zav zav shi un do chi tal che ma to tem ma to ya te chi thamo re so ta gom da chi ban ra wo shu chi yo re se
so we can make a distinction here. The distinction is a little less clear in the English, which is both lucidity and vibrancy are absent at this time, and I'm actually not quite sure which is being translated as which. But the important thing here is that when we talk about the mind in this state of concentration, there's both a clarity of the object and a clarity of the mind that's important. So there is, on one sense, there is the object that is appearing clearly, but there's also a vibrancy, a clarity of the mind that is also important, and either can be lacking. And so when we talk about subtle laxity, now you have an object, it's appearing, it's very stable, right? You feel it feels like a very good state of concentration, but there is this lack of vibrancy. The simgi ki ngachayure the mikbagi
cha se mu pa la pa shi chimbo ro ngar chan ro chu me ni ba de se ye lon ro sho ma to sem sa bo yo
ngacha the simgi kechu the mikbagi
oh se mu pa la pa ye lon jig bi cha chu de sa jing ye lo pa cha che tang cha par shu shi chimbo tem bo chi no te sung do
yeah so the let's see what's that clarity, yeah. So it's like the I was trying to clarify if the subtle laxity is the mind lacking clarity or the object lacking clarity. So the yuki kepo or the yuki kepo?
Tandal chawa lag ra na ya shiba yer le panji gondi ta zaw shu chi chen eta ki te police di temo ta mi jamba chi se di sabon thon de gre ta tanji chimbo chi zaw za che ma mi so gap ko che sa police ni ti se on de ta shu chi se mu za che o te yer ke na gi te shiba ga chawa se yer le pa ta thon re
so this is it's what it is it's what's lacking is a function of the mind where you're sort of staying very, very focused and it's like a very, very fixed mind, excited mind on the object. So the example that we can use is you're watching a movie, and in the movie you have all these extras, and then you have like these very famous actors or an actress, right? And so if you see the famous actor or actress that you really like, you get really focused on them and you're very excited to see them. So that's the sort of quality of mind you want, is that it's this mind that is not just sort of it's appearing and clear, but also you have this sort of focused vibrancy of mind that's sort of really engaged with the object.
Also that the jariya juin da mombo chi gom jam na ku ma te rupa kurin ro ndu zia ta tan do le so ti wand so na ta chiwa chamo tres chiwa chamo du gom ni de dinani it's rupa kupa chakares
rupa kupa
rendendo ti wand so na rupa lenden do so rendo chiwa chamo ngol na so gom jab de yo sam gore te
Wangdo ti kan kare loki te wangdo chini ti
hey wangdo so na rupa lenden do ti chiwa chamo wand so
Ati kare ti
searching ngar me prachilan jo zendo chiwa chamo na
the inchi ke na tsena diskala ka puto kare chini
chiwa chamo
chip ki tama na okay
taki chigo tharag se sati ramsan chitri chiwa chamo ai ke ras chigo tharag ni tsikashi
Sorry, he's reading a sentence, but the sentence in English doesn't match to me, so I'm trying to find out which. Sometimes they change the order. The clarity lacks vibrancy, due to which the mind becomes stupefied. So yeah, so we're explaining again just the sort of what is this subtle laxity. And so it's the clarity lacks vibrancy and the mind becomes stupefied. So it's this idea that there's sort of both the clarity is missing and the mind becomes dull in a way, stupefied. It says, so it didn't say dull because dull is a technical term.
So what in the situation that Jingum Charata Tezakosarwa, Chima Rapata, Mupala Tembo de Yona, Sarcha Mepata, Chamositi, Mupala Tembo de Ata Sarcha Nikayo, Narshon.
So just to summarize here, when we talk about the subtle and gross laxity, you have with the gross laxity, you're able to stay on the object, but there's not clarity in the object. With the subtle laxity, you're able to stay on the object, and the object is clear, but there's the mind, the way of engagement with the object lacks a vibrancy.
Ate Chian Tamotungo Nikali Kapon Jingdon, so Gom Jab Devi Kavla, Achua Chamoyana, Gomoni Regiona Kapois, that didn't go Kormombo Tegio.
This is actually this subtle laxity is a very difficult problem that really plagues a lot of meditators, even very experienced meditators. It really can fool people into thinking they've achieved a state where they're actually in subtle laxity. It's a real problem.
Last what any Gopan Tarani Terrain, and you but Gopan Taras at the Tangaso Mupala, and in the Gomdi Deoti, Tamupat, Mupat the Shorni, Sam Shalol Shondroa, Shondroa Chingdoa, Ketando Chakawandi, Lamdu, Tatanji Chagua, Namagona counter, Sam Shalol Shondrotita, go Parapatre.
So now we'll talk about the coarse and subtle excitement. And so coarse excitement is just losing the object. Your mind goes out to some other object. And this is usually, generally we talk about this as being under the power of desire or craving or attachment.
That's what any Gopa Chamos in a carreta, Gopal Choloshondro at Rapa in a Chamoseat Cariziti. Chamoseat Mupa Tata Teni Deores, Yena Sim Chalolea show yours. A sim Chalolea show Mupal in a carrez on the Consa Chocondela page and Chawoni Childipat Mukti yet Yeti Mashur, Zon Yotan, Sim Desert in Cherokee Chula Mupans, the Penangazo. Chula Tarchara, Hakoson, Tarkanal Chamaji, the Otinga, so Mutin the Tariana, Tarlam de Okachat on the Tartatimari. Chapa, Chagro, Chapa, Chapa, ice,
dinner, attachment of food, the Kupati.
Obancharaniki,
okay, water flows isolation, which is not lost in something. One, just as water flows beneath ice. Okay.
Taco not so mupat the Tarian and Tarlan Ton de Gore, Tarshorio Mar. No, what Chatian Ton. Sonsan goes to Mupanir and Ronson. Mupa Shorio is in a Shorio Marita, Mupa Intar. Sonsa Telegopa Chamos.
So the subtle excitation we can talk about is that you're not losing the meditative object. Actually, I'll just go ahead and read this because the Geshe Lharampa. Subtle excitation is scattering that does not involve losing the meditation object. For example, just as water flows beneath the ice, although the object of meditation is not lost and is still held by the mind, one part of the mind has the mental factor of distraction, which is to which the attractive aspect of the internal object is just about to appear. Right? So in gross excitation, you're losing the object. Here, you're able to stay on the object, but there is an aspect of your mind that's still being attracted, still being out of desire to some other object that might appear. In the way that the example here is the way that like water moves beneath ice, right? There's this sort of behind movement.
Atita Chorso Gomjati Tanga Solomombo Yungdo, Mupatia Sharda, Jambachi Shardia, Mupa Mala, we go to Jamba Shardindo, or Telu Gopa Chamos in Itian Gopares.
The Mupa the
Mupat Malawi, Mupat Shardivala, Tijamba, the answer Nishardia, and so Gomjat Mombo Yungdo.
So also it happens a lot if you have the object and you're looking at the object, but other things are sort of coming into your mind, and maybe you don't lose the object completely, but you're still having other things coming.
Sonsa, Gopan Charot to Samatella Babsati, not so Gomjavi Caps, Candidacy Gogres in a same Mupal Tembi catch your chick. Roa. Sem sarbo yimbi chachu goni. Sem yerlang omukpa ngartang dambi chachu sam.
This kitchen is
Sem omukpa tegwa yimbar. Omukpa tegwa mazet soso sem de ya tama sarbo chuma ma nyopto chemanya. Samba tela sem omukpa pa shikchimbo tembo ngar zeti shikchimbo chemuni begwa. Jabata cargo ndu zeti omukpa la temba mazeta omukpa zirni jamba sharia ya. Toni me pa korochibo ma to zirni jamba sha me pa tindi jet
So when we talk about meditation, there's really 4 qualities to placement meditation, right? There's one that the object itself is clearly appearing, that your mind is not getting over withdrawn or tired or bored, or your mind is staying engaged. The other one is that you have the vibrancy of mind that we were talking about, that the subtle that is what was the problem with the subtle sinking, right? That you have this mind that's like very strongly attracted and engaged with the object. And then the fourth one is what we've talked about with the subtle excitation, that you're still kind of part of your mind getting distracted. So you've got those 4 kind of qualities of laxity.
That's what tini do chi re sha ta. Ta tini do si te nri sa ro tini nga to sem ni ta de ke tan di wol mo bo sonda ta te so tini de chi nri ya chi yin la sha ro. Tani ta sem ni ta ka tani z gom ze ta jani ngoni gom yondi ramba kani de chi ni jani to bala pombo jani ma to kon le sem de ramba gatham ba shin du tele sem ni ta tani z gu she.
So there's a lot of detail in this chapter about laxity and excitement and stuff, and we're not going to go into that much more detail about it other than what we've done here. But you can read about it in the text. So now when we talk about we're moving on now to the stages of mental stabilization. The text says stable mental stabilization. So when we talk about the stages of achieving shamatha or calm abiding, we talk about 9 stages.
Sem ni tab ki tangin za gala tombo sem na ni tan jok pa ze sem na lan jok pa ze de o nga zo tanda gom majam ge chi na sem na lan jok pa ze ya ta wa ni me ka ti na koro ka jing ni na koro jing de na ma to mu pa chi le de ke cha chi me son ta jane tombo de on di sem na ni tan jok pa la.
So of the 9 stages of achieving shamatha, the first is called mental placement, and basically what this is that we put our mind, sort of place our mind in, or we point our mind inside, essentially, that we actually take an internal object we take an internal object of concentration. So normally what our mind is doing is we never really are looking inside. We're just sort of always, you're letting our mind go wherever it wants, looking around. So the first stage is just beginning to actually look at our mind, at the object of meditation.
Tani te che ondi ta nga so ne ma sha na jani so mu pando ba ka yo na te la mu ni sem ja ondi pe te re tel de ni shon ro re si te de shon ro re si ta ti kablan sem na ni tan jo pa zen din la pe ka ren jo za me to pi tan de jo ba sa che pa so me to na ro de jo ma te so yo ya cha te so ya cha ro o sem ta mu pan go le te ja tho I kap tel or dani sem na ni tan jo pa ze bi sem ni tambo de ni te go re zen.
So the tambo the ni pa di re
tombo
de
re
so when we've achieved the first, so you could say that when we've achieved mental placement, it's when we're able to sort of, we're putting our mind on the object sort of over and over again. We put our mind on the object and it goes away. We put our mind on the object and it goes away. But we're sort of doing this over and over again, but we're continuing to do this. This is achieving the first stage. And so there's an example here in the text. It says, it is like a bee alighting on a flower, settling momentarily and unable to stay put long. Right, so that's the example here, that you're putting your mind on the object, and of course it goes away. Put it on, it goes away. Put it on, goes away. That's the first stage.
cause the same dream is also on the not on which was on Riori. So that in not on board which you are not sharing need legend which you go maris.
So it often happens when we begin meditation and we start to sit that we start to try to place our mind on the object that suddenly it seems like all of these like compulsive conceptual thoughts are arising, like that our mind is really sort of going crazy with these conceptual thoughts. But really what's happening is that you're just recognizing this happening, right? That you don't have to be worried that your mind is getting worse, really. That really what you're doing is you're noticing these thoughts that are arising.
Nam tong mong the song but Nam tong was in Nyam Yin the on the Nyam Yin the Titel in a theatre tie Yawi touching the mato, do we touching Marilla?
In the book here it says, in this stage, it seems as if conceptualization is increasing. However, conceptualization has not increased. Rather, it is the experience of noticing conceptualization. So this is actually a good sign in the beginning, right? This isn't something to be worried about. Your mind this is a sign that your mind is improving because you're noticing these conceptualizations.
So then it is human rotati. As a sama tambo gomjati tenindochi drama metongal. For example, Tani by gender job as on the Tani. Parishitang is a gomnite, some pangolte, Srede Yampa, Sam Shaloshan, Penangasoyan, drama restricting gold permits, dig into Metongol Pam, Chindra was that getting the Kamachin, and a Kamachan chicken all Chajanga, so Samita with the Kama Chandrichil Chajanata, Kamachin Richidato, Yan Shalol Pasha, Yan Kamachi, Tendido Chileon, the gender job as in.
So the next stage, the next level is called continuous placement, and this is the idea that your mind now is able to stay on the object a little longer, and then it goes away and it stays on a little longer and it goes away, like maybe a minute or so you're able to stay on the object, and then your mind wanders off, and stay on the object and the mind wanders off. So this is not like, we have this example, that it's not like a bee landing on a flower and coming back off, right? You're actually able to stay for for a minute or so before your mind wanders off.
Matani, that is Genta Yongorita, Samba, Semni Samba Leon the Taylor Landed Job, Mupa Sem Chonza Kumbi, Jenny Kayan, the Cherotayana, Teshi Perchini, Laria Mupalats and Jobaziti Terra, T. Cabletani, Sempa Tanizela Gerimbo Jani, Pena Gomkama Cheligawona, Kama Nan Richireti Pat, Chelachishore, Ani Gay and Richireti Chishore. Kamachigan on the same chalo temanin to Mishoro and I landed job positive. Say on your Kashi Jaguar Mato.
The Kama Jugi ne Katsu Dila de Gere.
Come on, that's the part. I counter till late Sati, same nolo day at the Chimboche, Chalo show at the Kashi Mato means on landing job positive. Late Jajana Kangime Satile with the same Sambalagores.
So the third is patch placement, and this refers to concentration that, due to having become familiar with the object, recognizes when forgetfulness distracts the mind in the sense of causing it to be pulled away from the object, and places it again on the same object. And so when the mind is pulled away from the object, it immediately understands that it is distracted and can bring itself back to the meditation object. So for example, in a meditation of like 10 minutes, right? So you're staying on the object more than you're getting pulled away, right? So you're staying on the object 5 or 6 minutes, and when it gets pulled away, you immediately pull it back. It stays there for a while, right? So now you're staying on the object more than you're getting distracted away, right? So that's the biggest thing there.
Samupal Gerimbo de Toyo, Gerimbo de Onsa, Tini Jenny Chima the Legres, Mang Dick Nell, Semi Tombo da Nibakal Chiva, Kishayoma, Manchester Gopa Chino, Gopa Chamoya, Gopa Rapati Chalolochi de Gora, Dicabla, Gopa Gopa Saranica Yochosare, somebody, Chimayan, Chima Jenny, Chima Rapata Jenny, Legres, that is the Tangan Gomi. Gombiani de Ditani, Muba Mashonama, Tesinyo Tochandra, Telegres.
So before you've achieved this third level, really the laxity, what we talk about is laxity, not dullness, but laxity is not a problem. You have gross and subtle excitement. Your mind is getting scattered, but you don't have what we call laxity. Once you've reached the third level and you're able to stay on the object more than you're not, then you start to have the problem of subtle and gross laxity.
What things on that? And the Kami chiwa lego sa chiwa la za zo chi kitang gopa mukpa chalol shondro vi gopa tyang lego ora chalol shondro ade kashi ma to yung yo samara tata zu nal man to ya ti yo sonsa chiwa la za zo chi go san de ning go zga chim.
So what's happening here is until this point, your mind is constantly being pulled out and coming back and pulled out and coming back. But now you're able to keep your mind, focused on your object more. And so the reason that laxity becomes a problem is that now you have the risk of your mind becoming too withdrawn inward and kind of sinking, right? Becoming too inward. So you have to, at this point, be careful of mostly gross laxity.
So tinindo chi reta derleti tani jepa semni jepa leon semni jepa zena karse ta gom jaondi ta mugpa tani zonte mugpa show mares mugpa show mare mugpa mashwar sonsa gopa rakpa semni jepa ni yo mare yana gopa chamo tikali yores tinanje chiwa yo pari chiwa manam roata yo sari chiwa yo gopa yo sonsa no tani kabla atani zela ketan gom jani Seni je parle because gerimbo de togo sa mugba mashoni gerimbo de togo sare yana yo ta chiwa chamo ta gopa chamo so to wal tanda yugde yo sare.
So the fourth one, the close placement, at this point you're able to stay on your object very well. So you don't have the problem of gross excitement, right? You're not losing the object anymore. You do have the problem of that subtle excitement that we talked about, like with the ice and the water. And you also, of course, have the problem of laxity arising.
Sonda inal concept chok enje sonda te mukten show mares mukten mashor na ti kaps chingu chingwa ta gopa te shik chembo shu legres mukto ma gopa chamoro gopa chamo ta chingwa shik chembo shu legres a ti kaps ninga ta chi nga so kon she ja non shor sangoni ti khati yon so te sol chamba ta
So here in the fourth of the 9, close placement, there's a quote in the text here. From this point on, it is impossible to lose the object of meditation. So this concentration is distinguished from the first 3. Yet while the basic object of meditation is not lost, since laxity and excitement arise strongly, you must rely on these antidotes, right? So at this point, you're staying on the object of meditation, but now you have to be very careful because you have the subtle excitation and the laxity that are arising quite strongly because your mind is not going out anymore.
Ta ngapa tarwa chepa ta nginzala mukbal tembo deni do tomato jamba ta solo shira chabar mando chi parindo to bia porle gores ina andeni chiwa chamu ni ma to japi ni mepi da ta ngama ni chi go jakpan chomam jong chapre yen zedita jepi kapsa chi gopa jakpa ta yo mare yo mare gopa rakpa yo mukpa shor masara ina chiwa rakpa yo sara jepi kapsa chiwa rakpa yo sara ngapa kaleti chiwa chamo ma to chiwa chamo ta chiwa chamo ma to chiwa rakpa yo sama ta gopa rakpa yo parsim
gopa chamo yo
gopa chamo yo chiwa dikabla chamo ma to rakpa me a chasare se.
So the fifth one, taming, right? So compared to the fourth one, they're both able to stay on their object continuously now. So right, so we don't. So the main thing that distinguishes the fourth one from the fifth one is that at the fifth level, there's no. So we can read this from. However, from this point on, although there is a danger of subtle laxity, there is no danger of gross laxity. Thus, there is a difference between this stage and the earlier stage as to the occurrence of gross laxity and excitation. So from the fifth level, taming onward, you no longer have gross laxity or excitement that occurs. So now you're really just contending with the subtle laxity and the subtle excitement.
So ta chiwa chamo ipa ninga chashot di kap karle gres ro semninga pa ta semninga pa dina karze gor ngacho taki judia na jere semupal de ore so sem shu tamo sarbore de ore yana ya mupal pa tembon chi jama tani te sem lolon chini komupal shikchembo chite ma to watel chiwa chamo so tani de ayo ma shik tengores
Kari nikpate shikchembo te
mupala acho lo mupal ishor yo mare la mupal chibora ma to ni samje yo mare ani so semya tabo shu chi che ores ina ye chang ta ye chang jewa tembon ro chu che ma
okay. So this is at the fifth point, this is where this idea of subtle laxity really becomes important, really becomes dangerous, right? So you have a mind that the object is appearing, it's clear, you're not losing your object, your mind is stable, and it's staying on the object. So the danger really is that you have to be careful that the connection between your mind and this object is very strong, is very clear, is very vibrant, I think is the word in the text it uses, that there's this other aspect that you have to watch out for and be careful of the subtle laxity.
Also, tani semni chukpa leon ta tso sama semni shapa ngapa chukpa sama la mupali phani shoyo marta ta gom yakpo shure sare ngaso chetangwa chichena katina mupashi tini gom jabde gor chukpa leu kabla musi gopa chamo te ninga chashor res ngapa chiwa chamo ninga chashor ta chukpa gopa chamo ko so mupal ta sabot chuche de ona jamba tizar ne mupachi leone mupani ta samle yo ninga chashon ro chukpa le jakwa wote sonta chukpa ta ngapa ni khabar chiwa chamo ta gopa chamo yo mi khabar shikche lamdo te khabar res ketan damba ma tonga khmando chi go chamo gaya ta eti maywa cha demi kable te tsle ta gyapale satiyo anade chukpa ro
so the sixth one, pacification. So when we talk about the fifth one, we talked about the subtle laxity being the biggest danger. So the sixth one, the subtle excitement, is the biggest problem. And so at this point on, all of these minds are very highly concentrated, very stable minds, right? So these are, from here on, you're talking about very, very well concentrated minds. And so really here in the sixth one, this pacification, the main thing you're watching out for is this subtle, the subtle excitement, which we talked about being sort of you've got your object of meditation, but other things are sort of appearing around it. They're almost distracting you, right? They're keeping part of your mind distracted, like we talked about, like ice with water sort of running behind it.
Also, tani reondi ta semni damba leondi tani chiwa chamo yenari gopa chamo yenari chama gtsal chno pa chematoni chetanti stezere ta legyo saro tiz mato shra no pa le matoni tangin tembo shu chayon vi kabla ta semni damba jorche pa jate ta sem shu jiwa chasa sonsa tiglawores ro
So
the
chingwa tang gopati chamo this like here.
No part to mare lamdo.
So at the seventh level, with complete pacification, you've reached a level that's, of course, you're really beginning to get control of, the subtle, the laxity and excitement, but you haven't totally eradicated them. There's still some amount of laxity and excitement happening, small amounts of it that are still sort of creating some flaws in your concentration.
Also, tani semni gyapale tani tanda Jingo Savani yo mares, Jingo Savani yo ma, the Transhiga, Chamba the Shijinikaga, Charat Chegores, the Tangazo combat signal, Takama later Leomar, the Goson and the Jaguaris the Achura combat. Kambakama my own so Goson Jagoya, but the Nidochi radio race. Chamba the Shiji in Marco Jingo Leomar, the Chamba the Shijin, I don't check what is the
So in the eighth now, we've really gotten rid of the sort of the laxity and the excitement, the eighth level. And so there's this idea of like, if you want to keep a robber from getting into your house, you lock the door. And so at this level, it's really important to practice mindfulness and introspection, to watch your mind and make sure that the robber of these two, laxity and excitement, doesn't return, and come back. So it's like shutting the door through the power of mindfulness and introspection.
That's what this is about the Tenisium Nigapatanda, Jani Drapa, Sem Nigapatri, Tagapa Lesati, Chingum yo Mari, Tanshijan, Temago, and Gomjani did in a Chingum Las of Chekon Nova Many. Tagati Gomjap Toto, Rideto race, Tika Jani Lavres in a Janet and the Tokyo race.
So by the ninth level now, we no longer need, we're able to stay on our object. We don't have to worry about laxity, excitement anymore. We've finished with those. And we don't actually have to really practice the mindfulness and introspection in the same way. Our mind is able to really stay on the object quite well and quite vibrantly. However, we still haven't achieved the shamatha or calm abiding at this point.
Asota, the nam je gabanyam joko tangin zan zeni ta semni gabatal gabanyam joko tangin zan zeni na chu chu na mambo chi yore ta tan da chol nga so lam gom ni ro ti phapi lam ta so ya tan da yam ne chen ni ro tomba ni ta so ndu gom ni ya gom lam da tin ji ya ndo yore we zena a par che men jo ro kashi na li yo pan ro shen du ma man che sa jang ne nguni ma to par ta big go ni shu ndo to amare
so we can ask ourselves, like, would we say that at this 9th place with balanced placement is the name for it, with this kind of concentration, are we able to achieve like the path of seeing and above, right? These can we say we've had a direct experience? Can we achieve this direct experience of emptiness that we need to achieve the path of seeing? Some people say yes. I think most people say no, that you need fully qualified shamatha or shine or calm abiding to achieve the path of seeing.
Tasin raw ta da tindi yadon teaching teba tamom teba chimbon raw tindi yinna parche gapanyam joko tangin zala tini palam dro tonyin raw palam zena ta cholo biolam tono golno tindi yan dro tonyin raw tindi shenyin de ta so samlo chi ta ando gapanyam joko tangin zo top sa tin dorna li shen jang da sem shen jang da ma to re ma to shen tangin zo tembo shure tara ati kabla tomba ni gomna ko tomba ni to sa ni china tara gome yore te gom de na parche nyom go nyem bon ro ni nyom pan ro yo nyen chira son tan do sem la te ni nyom pan yo ta mezi ni national tin shore ma che sa nyom pan la jane to ni son te ni ndo pore ma to yo ma rezin te shen do
so there's a lot of debate actually about this, about whether at this 9th level of balanced placement versus having actually attained fully qualified calm abiding, are you able to actually achieve these, what we would call these the Arya paths, right? The path of seeing and above, where you've had the actual direct realization of emptiness. And so, if you think about the 9th balance placement and the achievement of shamatha, the difference really is just this special pliancy of body and mind. So the argument is, if the only difference is the special pliancy of body and the mind is this incredibly concentrated mind, why is that mind not enough when realizing emptiness to achieve these Arya levels, these Arya paths? So some people make this argument, but most people say no. You still need the fully qualified shamatha to have achieved the path of seeing.
Also, tani semni gopal jambat minji kariyore ze onindel semni gopa manchalan dopi sem lagri dopi sem semni gopa ni ya gwini jane to gondi kam komi sem zeni national tani tanya chi
jago ti kupe ki sem ti temesem ti te
dopa tan dopi kam se achi wa dopa vi sem res da manchot dopa vi sem da ta semni da semni gopa ta dopi sem yaksho te tere ma ti galia sona kam komi sem chandro rela.
So we talk about we can talk about these minds, these incredibly concentrated minds. We can talk about the 9th mind is the sort of most concentrated, the best mind in the desire realm, the mind of the desire realm. This is the highest level that's still in the desire realm, right? Once you get to the mind of shamatha, you've actually left the desire realm and you're in the sukme, so you're in these higher realms. You have the desire realm, form realm, and formless realm, which are differentiated by sort of concentrated states of mind. And so this 9th mind is the last mind that's in the desire realm. Whereas once you've achieved shamatha, you've reached these higher levels of concentrated minds where you're no longer in the desire realm.
So the dopi sem dan kam komi sem ze dia so na chu janye china ti kecha chap chembo shur sem teng kor tanji she ondi ta gaba part dopi sem ba chita jane to ondi kam komi sem ze gore ta ti kam komi sem ze goya kar re kam koma no sadan da zigme kanza kgel kanza le or nga so dopa wara dopi gelan kam komi sem yo kar re zina I think come komis samsal sata siddhi ta riya jagor kam komis semlamna tu te ko gom ge ten rawota ya ten tombo leni kam koma ta so sem da nyamba rich ke ser le yon sonta ta kama le an thoshor da yora pena kerdani pena ko lobta chembo chi ko pu mamba chi ro ina korung lob jonde lobta chembo chi ko pu lob jong ten rich le yondi kol lobta chimbo shi se yore la gro
So nganzo tatung the
Dobi same day.
to become gimi.
Dobi kapge tang mi ta so same day. Rapare. Tangin tembo chuni yo mar kai na jingdo. Kam komba te so mai ba ta ki na tangin zang sem chang ja re tembo yo res. Ina doba wa chi gom jamia centom bole ondi. Koma kam koma te so ta. Chikpa ro cha yo re semba sonza kam komi sem zia te res ni dobi sem re de ora.
So when we talk about sort of the beings of the desire realm and these beings of these higher realms, these higher states of concentration, of course, the beings of the desire realm have very coarse bodies and very coarse minds, that are constantly sort of impelled by desire, whereas the beings of the form realm and the formless realm have more subtle bodies and minds that that exist in these constant states of concentration. So when we say by achieving shamatha, you have a mind that exists in the form and formless realm, right? We're still beings of the desire realm, but our mind has reached a state that is so concentrated and purified. Our mind becomes like these beings of these higher realms.
Hotel kam komi sem la te la orta. Tendi sem danga sundo bi gela top son. Teni ngema ya chi jin sa so teni jane zia de top son ro. Teni ni ka shi go tomba ni jane go tomba ni go ni nya ngem jong da tomba ni nya li chin ro re. Ka shi ngem jong da chang chop ko sem da tomba ni sum ka ja ni nya lin ro re. Ngem jong da tomba ni mi ti ni ja ni nya lin ro chang chop se nya le ma che na. Ko na chu na ni te pa man bi nya lin zia de chang.
So when you achieve calm abiding, there's different things you do with this mind, right? So you can meditate on renunciation, or this like conviction to arise from samsara, like ngejung. You can meditate on the wisdom on emptiness, or the wisdom realizing emptiness, and you can meditate on bodhicitta. So if you only meditate on this conviction to arise from samsara and the wisdom realizing emptiness, you essentially are doing a hinayana, a lower tenet system kind of meditation. So you're not meditating in a Mahayana way. If you do those two and you use this mind to meditate on bodhicitta, then this is a Mahayana sort of use of this mind.
Ani jani matub koni ngem jong nyablin cha ta tomba ni ko ya ta chanchu kusem ko yore vesine yode yore ina concept sondi ta tel ni part tel tengwa tel tiga jasta chi mena na so nyablin den thorin ro thoya parche mer kan tets den ro yora.
So of course, even though we have not attained this mind of shamatha, and before you've attained this mind of shamatha, you can contemplate and meditate on these things. This mind of renunciation, this conviction to rise from samsara, the wisdom of emptiness, and bodhicitta. Right? You are able to meditate on these things, but until you have this incredibly concentrated mind, this kind of meditation will not become a cause for you to go to these sort of higher realms of the form and the formless realm.
Also, ta rumombo chike namba maim ba mombo chike nyawle chengela tanda ti partan ro yor tanda jane part ko chole chiba yor chanda jelle le sati khoni chancho ko sem dang ngem jong da tomba ni topi nyamle chegre ze nyamle cheng ako tu samtan da zigme le nyamle cheng do samtan zigme samtan zigme ko nguje ta ya dong kam ko ma hat so ya ki wa to ni cheng te on di jane gan samni tani doping kamle kina kyo mombo chimbu kam komal ya ke ko to sami kam komal tajan raw na jetan do pal kyontani tendri gomshu jami mombo chik sapta zingmel ya ke de orete na chu na thamong bilam ga jitem bilam zeger.
So of course many non-Buddhist practice these kinds of practice meditation and can achieve shamatha. So it's not just Buddhists that achieve these incredibly high states of concentration, what we call shamatha, right? Every different religions, different people in different backgrounds are able to attain this, but they're not meditating. Non-Buddhists are not meditating on the conviction to arise from samsara, bodhicitta, and the wisdom realizing emptiness. So what they're doing really generally is that they are looking at the faults of the desire realm and looking at these realms access to these higher concentrations as sort of the goal, what they're accessing. So they're going through and doing progressively more and more and more deeper and deeper and deeper levels of concentration and getting to these higher realms.
이 값들 다 녀자 참원으로 지요래 전도 원인들 지ren들이 뭐뭐 지요라 팀엔 그냥 티chen 그냥 사탄 그냥 다 남바 있나 사탄 다즈메 그무지 토요 마르베 다 tom바니 토냐르니 치니스나 토솔레야 치셰긴도 토소양 사탄다즈메 그무지 토탄지 셰긴도 이나 티솔레 티스칼리 카본로 탄다 도파 코소수드 무파타 사탄 다 ዝሜ리야 케비체 도마리 이나 사탄 다 ዝ메 그셈 그무지 토소토나 오코 tom바니 토솔냐르니 시체린도 하고 알라테니 Hindi on sata zingme jom yeching namba mombo jom ataki namba yina janeni su tomba ni to nyame che rezera ani ta namba main ke to mombo chi sata zingme ko nguji jom rezera ta namba to sata nguji jom mare rezera oti jom mombo yo res yina ya ko sata hal ke sona ke ponjin do zingme ke sona ke ponjo su to mare sata do zingme ke sem de so nyame de top sona 그 동반이 gondala nyamle shi cherin ro sonta ti che tayon nyamle che mombo chi yo.
So when we think about the difference between Buddhist and non-Buddhist, right, the practice, the non-Buddhists we say practice concentration and they reach these really really high states of concentration in these different realms. It's not that Buddhists aren't and have not achieved the same levels of concentration. The difference really is that for Buddhists, right, the goal is not to achieve these high states of concentration. It's that through achieving these high states of concentration, you're able to meditate on something like the wisdom realizing emptiness that has this, that is really able to have a profound effect on you.
Sonta nanchu nyamle nang tenji jawandi tanda sata tombu jani towandi sata tombu nye dolagare an sata nibi tombu nguja nibi nguja sambi nguja jebi nguja zigme tombu nguja nibi nguja sambi nguja chi
the shine te gangon de gepa yore
ta nguja tala zigme la nguja je yora sata la nguja je yora je ga nga zigme tama sitse to papi yong ani jamba nguja dunche ti kawla sata tombu nyer dozeni chik jabdi ke chakto
Tigete. Tigete ki nang di shine kare topna.
Janete sata tombu nye dok tamman tondo sata tombu get sata ngujje zime ngujasam sata tombu nye dok te get la teni atomba nye topi ko ni lamnya le jan ro akshitu.
So when we talk about these different levels of concentration, so when you achieve shamatha, you can keep going, and there's three. The kariti sukmagi sum
zingme sam sachet ngaso tombani gomtho mare zeng atje mare sache maim bad nam kan tai nashin tai cham sam sata tombani pasam ba jepa je denja ikar sata tombani do zyada tai na jane tri te gyata
ge te gangon te okwa
jane tombo togro ni sata tombani pasam ba jepa nam kan tai nashin tai cham ge changdong do ge tala
So when we talk about there's these different levels of concentration. There's the different what is the word for that in English? The different sort of achievements of concentration in the form and formless realm. I'm sorry, I can't remember the right word for that. But so above the achievement of calm abiding in there's three in the formless realm and four in the three in the form realm and four in the formless realm. And so in each of those, you're able to practice sort of deeper and deeper states of concentration and use that mind to practice to meditate on emptiness. You need to
tanga so namba gnyamle che atla do pi kam koma to so sem namba gnyamle che grezina che satla yes.
So yeah, so there are eight levels of concentration that we can achieve for us as beings in the form realm.
And
the desire realm.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll stop there today. Do you guys have any questions? No. Sorry, I feel like I got a little lost there at the end of the levels, but did my best.
I haven't got a question, but I think it's too complicated and maybe it's not strictly related with the topic of today.
We can try. I mean, we'll see how it goes. Yeah. It's okay. We'll try.
Once we once we have reached the shamatha,
Uh-huh.
then our mind is ready to meditate on bodhicitta, on the interdependent nature of things, and on emptiness. Can we speak about how to meditate on emptiness? This is the thing I've been looking for a long time.
Like in general, because we can meditate on emptiness now, right? I mean, it's just not as powerful.
Sorry.
We can meditate on emptiness now, it's just not as powerful. So do you mean in general or after we finish?
I mean, in general, what is the meaning of to meditate on
Okay.
emptiness?
Chỉ tăng lắm là thì tông ban ni là thì gồm kẹp nó thì cái này thân cái này can't just
Tombani gomziati.
예.
Ale tombani gomziati.
거기 지었지.
Rere. Tangaso tombani gomzeti ngaso mema tato tse tamambo shede ma. Tato tsene soni ngaziati pa.
맞잖아.
Temje ngani chashi mambo chichani chobs hare manga. Tse sona tsawani ni mindu sambe mepatera mega pela. Samlo tani dena. Ngaso rawandi yopi lo tamashi chimbo chakayo sonsa. Tenje mega tele lo tele nini dea tele tombani gomze ora. Tseni manye pig mega che ora. Tele samlo tani dea la tombani gomze ndo. Te mato jamba mapa.
So when we talk about meditating on emptiness, right, the thing is that you're looking for this sort of impossible way of existing of the self, right? And you're looking for it and you don't find it. And so in this is described as a megak. It's a negation that is a total negation, doesn't imply anything else. So you look for this sort of impossible appearance of a self, and it's the merely not finding of that, and then keeping your mind on the absence of that. So it's an absence that's understood as meditating on emptiness, that lack, that absence, that not finding of this impossible way of existing of the self. You stay your mind on that. Yeah, so we're not saying the person doesn't exist, right? Generally the person exists, right? But it's this looking, it's like when you try to find this ultimate, you're doing this ultimate analysis, you try to find the person. Where is the person, right? That you know exists. And it's that not finding, right? And staying on that not finding, right? That absence, that's the way that you meditate on emptiness.
Mati tombani tangoni ko an rawo chani tani gomjap tani shion di jering mo shu pas jamba chikkan shame tomba rang ngol gomjap ni shu de.
So this is obviously a very deep subject and something that we could talk a lot about, right? And it's something you have to do over a long time. But if I was going to say it real quickly, roughly, this is like a rough idea of it.
Last tani siresha tiche. Tiwani. Yeah.
Confirm. Jedi said, even you reach shamatha state, but that just you still remain on desire ring, but your mind is reaching like formless, right? But you still in the desire ring, right?
Yeah, so she took the kanzak de dube kanzak kimi degere. Sim traum the kongi sim de the sume come ki sim
Satang sem so satang sem da sem gana rimba mashon chi ora te ta tsenyam tsari ta ko gomya ni ban ro ngeta ki lobtal pe jay ba chetan ko lobtan ro nyo yo mar ta lobtawa de shi tsenyam ba ji ora te na janga so satel yo mar ta satang sem da gom kani tsenyam ba ji so satang sem
gom ki tsenyam
ba
we remain beings of the desire realm, but our mind, right, has achieved the level that is the same level of concentration as these beings. We've sort of achieved the same measure of concentration that beings in that realm have achieved.
Even you reach some shamatha status, but you still haven't eliminated the affliction. So
dengan tu di sini tupsaru jalan nyomong bang
nyomala chiking rashra yomala nyomong pal jini
concentration of course doesn't have anything to do really with getting rid of the afflictions by itself.
Second question is, so there is debate about which one you should learn first,
Mm.
shamatha or
Mm.
the emptiness, wisdom of emptiness.
So tangbo kari
Mm.
kari jangori di shine yang na di dongmani do peshirap di tangbo la kari la.
당아초 나비 냠레 쟁에 쟁나 바람 체요 말로 tombañela yang lobyon che gore la jane yang gom gorwa ina ko ngel tombañe to sonana ko kan toto chi gomni te tombañe comme parent jane gomni do na ndiko na so jane mu pa le tombañe ja to na yashorwa jane gom sa ko tombañe ngel to na tel jane do na et ngel to ma to na ngel jane do ni jima tombañe to na jane savi jil tombañe gomni ndiko te paru mu pa yo mari.
Right now, there's really not a specific order. We should sort of be doing both and working, practicing on both, you know. And then once we've, of course, meditating on emptiness is the best object, is the sort of the goal, right? Eventually, you should be using your mind to have a very powerful mind to meditate on emptiness. But some people sort of really develop a strong realization of emptiness first, and then achieve shamatha. Some people achieve shamatha and then develop, you know, strong understanding of emptiness and bring it together. But yeah.
Shamatha is more like a powerful tool to help you to reach the wisdom of emptiness. Geshe mentioned, right? Without shamatha, then even you are meditating on the wisdom of emptiness, but it's not powerful because you get distracted.
Yeah, komas.
The shine di ngato di ding something ki shine di ngati lakcha shukchun po java yeres te wangi te gyune ngato sim de ngune chene dongbani di pinto shukchewa yeres.
Re tombani lo tani jane to thomi tombani gomna ha chate mo yoro. Aso jane to maso tombani ro chite chena ya yen.
Yeah. So it becomes, you know, the mind, of course, becomes very powerful, very stable, and you stay on it, and it's really strong. Right now, our mind, we think about emptiness, and it kind of comes and goes, and it's nice, but it's not. It's not like that. Gang,
Yari boy.
gang ringbo, degi yerebe, tongi do.
Haribo. Laso tik soe. Joa ni cha soe. No, tuji che.
Thank you.
Ani ja ro. Tuji che.
Thank you, guys. Online. Did anybody have online questions? No.
Mandu.
Thank you.
Oh.
When I